The Serpent Prince. Once upon a time, a powerful Khmer prince lived in a fine city in what is now northeastern Thailand. Thousands of people lived there, and aside from the emperor's own city, this one was regarded as the finest in the realm. Everywhere the eye turned, it could see beautiful stores, palatial houses, and awe-inspiring temples. The houses in the city were especially fine. The people took great pride in their homes, and all of them were very well kept, except for one. In the whole city, there was only one house that was small, ugly, and old. It belonged to an old, crippled widow who could no longer work. For many years, the people of the city had given her food and money, but as they continued to make their city more beautiful, they became more and more embarrassed by her house. To make matters worse, it was situated in the center of the town. Had it been on the edge of the town, they might not have been so annoyed, but it was right in the middle, and everyone who came to the city was sure to see it. "It is scandalous," the people said, "that she does not take better care of her home." One day, the prince decided he could not tolerate this eyesore any longer, and he sent a messenger to the widow. "My prince has declared that you must move your house to another place," said the messenger. "We plan to build a new temple on this land." The old woman replied, "Tell our prince that I cannot move my house because I have no money to move it, and I have no more land to go to." When the prince heard this, he was exceedingly angry. He was so angry with the old woman that he did not think to offer her land and money so that she could move her home. Instead, his anger, the prince decreed, "It is forbidden upon pain of death that anyone shall offer food, money, or help to the old widow who lives in the center of our city." The prince and the people thought that she would soon die without their help. Then they could tear down her ugly old house and build their temple. In the meantime, the attention of the city and of the entire country was turned to the prince's daughter. She was considered the most beautiful girl in the land, and the people knew that her father was seeking a suitable young man to be her husband. The prince was besieged with young men wishing to marry the princess. Finally, out of desperation, he decreed, "On the night of the next full moon, I shall have a party to choose the princess's husband. At that time, I will look carefully at anyone who is interested. Furthermore, because I want to make the proper choice for my daughter, every man who is not married is invited, and he may bring his family and friends with him." Now beneath the city, deep under the ground in an enormous cavern, was the kingdom of the serpents. The serpents knew about the city of the people above them. Its wonderful buildings amazed them too. Nearly every day they sent one of the serpents up to the city. These serpents would transform themselves into people and walk about the city streets. Then they would return to their kingdom and tell the other serpents what they had seen. On that day, the prince made his declaration. A serpent happened to be in the crowd, in disguise, of course. Immediately, he stole out of the city and re-entered his own secret kingdom in the ground. "In the city above us," he told the other serpents, "the prince has announced that he will choose a husband for his daughter at a party to be given next week. People above say that the prince's daughter is the most beautiful girl in the world, and that this will be the most fabulous party ever given." When the son of the king of the serpents heard this, he thought, "I will get permission from my father to be allowed to attend that party. I have not been to the city for years." But what he did not tell his father was that he is intended to win the hand of the young princess. On the night of the prince's party, the whole city was astir. Not a soul, save one, remained at home. Even the married and the aged were present, for they wanted to see whom the prince would choose. But one person was not present, the old widow. She could not come, for she knew she would not be welcome, and anyway no one would help her to get to the prince's palace. The young serpent was late in leaving his subterranean home, and by the time he emerged on the land disguised as a handsome young man, he could tell from the noise that the party had already begun. He was late. If he did not hurry, the prince might choose another man to marry the princess before he arrived at the palace. What could he do? On a sudden impulse, he changed himself into a handsome white squirrel. He knew a squirrel could run much faster than a man could walk. He would be in the palace in no time whatsoever. And once he was there, the princess was very nervous tonight. As she waited to join the party, she looked into the main rooms of the palace and saw throngs of people. It seemed as if there were more people at her party than she had ever seen in all of her life. She hoped her father would choose wisely. The princess paced up and down and stared out of the window, and she was doing so she noticed a large white squirrel hopping over the palace wall. It was so large that she wanted it. "Guard, shoot the squirrel," she cried. "I must have it." The guard fired and the squirrel fell to the ground, but before it died, its serpent spirit uttered a curse. "Whoever eats my meat tonight shall die before the dawn in sight, and every building in this town will, by the dawn, have fallen down." When the guard brought the dead squirrel to the princess, she marveled at its unusual size and its fine white fur. "It is indeed beautiful. Take it to the cook and I'll tell him to roast it. It will be the finest dish at the supper tonight." By this time, the excitement in the palace was very great. Everyone was awaiting the entrance of the prince and his daughter. When at last they arrived, the people could hardly believe the beauty of the princess. She seemed to glow. Before the meal was to begin, the princess wished to speak. The room was quieted. Then she spoke. "We have a very special dish for our supper tonight." As I was preparing to enter this room, I looked out of my window. On the palace wall I spied a beautiful white squirrel. The guard shot him, and his meat will be one of the dishes tonight. I am certain it is a good omen for all of us. There will be enough for only one bite for each person, but I am confident it will be worth it. Then the platter containing the squirrel was brought out. It was indeed no small squirrel, and everyone was anxious to please the princess by eating his share. And now a most miraculous thing happened. Each time a piece was taken, the meat was replenished so that there was never more nor less than at first. Moreover, the meat was the most delicious food any of them had ever tasted, and none of the rest of the food was touched that night. Meanwhile, it had begun to rain. With the first bite of the squirrel's meat, the rain was a gentle sprinkle, but soon it became a downpour. And yet no one inside the palace noticed the deluge outside. They were too busy eating the wonderful meat of the squirrel. Soon, water was pouring into the palace. It happened so quickly that everyone drowned. Not a soul in the palace was able to save himself. And by dawn the water had destroyed everything in the city: palace, buildings, markets, homes, and even temples. Except for one house, everything was gone. Because she had not eaten of the squirrel's meat, the widow did not die. The king of the serpents, upon learning this, decreed that her home should not be destroyed with the rest of the city. The land around her house rose in the deluge and became an island in the middle of a huge lake. Many people still believe this story, and they can show you the lake with its island in the center to prove their belief. The Serpent Prince.